these Texas Democrats are publicizing their sneaky departure from their home state. It's the second time they've fled the state house this year to derail attempts by Republicans to pass a strict new voting law.
More than 50 Democratic members of the Texas House left Austin and left Texas. We are in a fight to save our democracy.
Governor Greg Abbott called a special session to get the new voting restrictions passed. When they left, the Democrats deprived the Texas State House of a quorum. Now, the representatives are lobbying federal lawmakers to pass stronger voting protections.
You said that you want to see this For the People Act passed at the federal level. That has had a vote. All Democrats voted to advance that debate. What has changed? What are you guys going to say here now in D.C. to try to change minds?
Sure. So what has changed is Texas is now in a special session to, again, pass an extreme anti-voter measure. It's going to make it more difficult for people to vote. And so we want to use this extreme example of what Greg Abbott and Republicans in Texas are doing to implore the Democratic senators to do what it takes to get the bill passed.
How long do you plan to be here?
So August 7th is the end of the special session. If I go back into the state before August 7th, then I can technically be pulled into the chambers. So I will not be back before August 7th.
About 66% of registered voters in Texas cast a ballot in the 2020 election, the highest turnout the state's seen since 1992. And 87% of those voted early. Texas Republicans reacted to that turnout with measures that would ban drive-through and 24-hour voting and give partisan poll watchers more leeway, even though the state already has some of the most restrictive voting laws in the country.
What are some of those concerns that you have?
You know, there was 24-hour voting and things like that where we didn't have the polls, the people that manning the polls and those that were there to watch that election process.
That was in Harris County, right? As far as I know, there was no fraud that happened there and everything went smoothly. Why should drive-through voter be eliminated?
You know, that's something that will be looked into. That's an area that will be discussed and brought up.
Hundreds of Texans signed up to speak against the voting bill, some of them waiting over 20 hours for their turn.
I early vote because I can do that now. But with this voter suppression bill, that's what we're going to do. We're going to suppress people's vote. We're going to suppress my vote.
Este proyecto de ley dificultará el voto de las personas.
It is clear that the legislation before you that you're now considering is anti-black and anti-brown.
Protesters are gathered outside of the State House here in Austin, calling this a suppression session, voicing their concerns about this election and voting bill.
We're calling this the suppression session. Say it after me. We're at the suppression session.
Why did you organize this protest today outside of the Texas State House?
We want to make sure that we're saying that the people of Texas are not going to give up, that we're going to fight against voter suppression. We know that Texas is not by itself, that's why we came from Georgia, why we're working all over the nation, that there is a concerted, coordinated strategy happening all around this nation right now to suppress the vote. That's why we're here today. We're lifting up what we're doing in Texas, but we're also want to amplify there's a greater need that we need in this country right now to protect the basic fundamental of democracy, which is the access to the ballot.
There's zero evidence of widespread voter fraud in Texas or in the rest of the country. But just this year, Republicans in 17 states have already passed 28 bills that they claim are necessary for election integrity, even though some of them will tell you their own election went pretty smoothly.
It's important that people have confidence in Texas elections, and I think Texas does as good a job or better than any state in the union in how we ran our elections. I think the election in November of 2020 in Texas was run very well by our election professionals across the state. I think the proof's in the pudding. You look how it turned out. Republicans had a very good...
Why do you need this bill?
But because it's what I just said. There were instances of improprieties, of illegality.
I've seen polling that says that a third of Republican voters now in the United States do not believe that Joe Biden was elected fairly, that he won because of stolen votes. Are bills like this election bill fueling that kind of question of the election and democracy in this country?
There's always a problem between perception and reality in every walk of life, but certainly in politics. The reality of the bill that we will file, Andy Murray's carrying, that we expect to make it into law that Governor Abbott will sign, the reality of it is about having fair, free elections and having rules that we can follow and rules, if necessary, we can enforce. It has nothing to do with suppression, and it certainly, but it doesn't create or cause, it's not a cause and effect, chicken or the egg thing, that by filing these bills, you make people distrust the system. I would argue it's exactly the opposite. By addressing these issues timely, we fix a problem.
Democrats don't have the numbers to stop this bill from advancing whenever they do come back. Their constituents know it and are also looking to D.C. for help.
There's a lot of things that we can do to help our constituents. Not mine, but, people like me, their constituents.
Should they be down here? Should Biden have come down to Texas?
I mean, yeah, they can come down and make access for vaccines accessible. Like, why can't they make access for voting accessible?